They lost their individual personalities. And because the enemy comes so hard after the individual personalities, that tells me that's something that's very
Thank you for joining me on the Unrefined Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Spain, along with Lindsy Waters, where each week we delve into the mysteries that shape our world, from the tangible to the supernatural, with a foundation rooted in biblical truth. For more content and exclusive resources, visit us at unrefinedpodcast.com. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. All right, you guys. Today we're going there. We're going there again. You've heard the name Son of Sam, the serial killer who shook New York to its core in the 1970s. But what if that wasn't the end of the story? What if buried beneath the headlines and the horror was a redemption arc, almost that nobody's talking about? This one's raw, real, and straight up miraculous. Whether you're a true crime junkie or just wondering what kind of soul-saving power Jesus really has, get ready. You're about to hear what happens when a monster meets mercy. Joining us today is our guest co-host, Jen Parks, who's been on here before, here to unpack Monster Mirror and talk about just things associated with the Son of Sam murders and what's happened since then. It's a book chronicling about 100 hours of face-to-face time with David Berkowitz himself. Welcome, Jen Parks. Hey, Jen.
Yay! Thank
Hey,
you.
Jen.
Thank you for having me back. Hi. How you guys?
Well, I mean, I feel like you're part of the team because, I mean, you're such a resource, and you see what we're trying to do, and you believe in us, and that means more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I'll
So,
take bonus member. That'll work. That'll
yeah,
work.
bonus member. Yeah, you go.
Bonus.
All right. So even before we had approached you to talk about this, because we're going to have you on more and more for different things, just a little shout out, you guys. We're going to try to have her on every quarter. We're going to do a true crime with paranormal and supernatural aspects, if she's still game with that, which I think she is. And so this is kind of one we've been diving into the Son of Sam, Lindsay and I. So we were talking to her about it, but she already had an interest in this case, I think, beforehand. So let's start off with just a relatively easy question to get her talking, because I want to hear what she has to say. So what drew you in to David Berkowitz and this particular book to dive deep into his story?
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take you back a little bit and kind of tell
Go
you
for it.
what I know about true crime. So before I got into this Christian fringy space about 5 years ago, I was kind of obsessed with true crime.
Mr.
And
Bylan? Do you listen to Mr. Bylan and
yes.
who's
Okay.
there's a redheaded Irish guy that I listen to too. I can't
Ooh.
remember his
I know
can't
who you're
remember his
talking about. I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, he's really he's funny in that. And then I listen to who's the lady that puts on makeup and does true crime.
Yeah, I've listened to her a couple times too. I don't
Yeah.
remember who she
Anyway,
is.
I was just thinking about it. Anyway, keep going. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. In fact, I mean, I do have, I honestly, I do have an obsessive personality. I remember I was in a women's group, right? And the leader was saying something like, it was a Christian women's group Bible study thing, and she was saying, it's not good to obsess. You shouldn't obsess about things. And I said to the group, well, if I don't obsess, what am I going to think about? And because I just do that. I just dive in and immerse myself in whatever's going on.
We
And
understand.
yes, I knew you would. I knew you would. I really started listening to and reading John Douglas. And if you're not familiar with him, if
Yep.
you're in true crime, you should know who she is. But I'll just say it anyways.
Yeah.
John Douglas and Olslacker, I can't remember the name, but they were developers of the FBI Behavioral Sciences Unit. And they interviewed they still do, interview hundreds of serial killers, mass murderers, those kinds of people.
The Mindhunter guys.
Yeah, if
Mindhunter.
you've ever watched check out the Netflix. There's a Netflix show about it, which it's not as good as the books, but it's a good show. So
That show is so good.
yeah.
Yeah,
I hate that they dropped it off, but what was Douglas's first book? Was it Mindhunter or was
It
it?
was Mindhunter. It was
Yeah,
Mindhunter. And
yeah.
I actually read way back on Reader's Digest, they had a condensed version of the book in the Reader's Digest that month, and I was like, I have to find the whole book. So
Yeah.
I think I read everything that he wrote up to about I don't know, maybe 2012, 2013. So I just read, I listened to everything that I could get my hands on from him. And I really had a lot of respect for him, what he was able to do, and what the behavioral sciences unit was able to do to
Yeah.
get a better understanding and categorize and stuff. But there were a couple things which I have to say over the last 7 or 8 years, I've been realizing that he was really off on some
Kind of
stuff.
sus, right? I mean,
Yes, a little sussy. Because one of the things I remember, and this was when I was starting to hear about SRA and people being abused and ceremonies and things like that. I'm not sure which phrases are okie dokie to say,
any
but
of them. Yeah.
okay, all right. So satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah.
Hearing about those things, and then I would watch him to see, okay, what is his opinion on this? I got to look up YouTube or something like that. And he would say, the gist of it is we've never found any evidence that those things actually exist.
Yeah.
And I thought, And then you're in this space, you start hearing all these stories, and
Yeah.
it's like that thing. If somebody says, well, I don't believe in that, I say, okay, well, okay, all right. How many personal experiences of non-connected people do you need to make you believe? Do you
Well,
need 5? Do you need 100? Because I can get you that.
well,
I and so yeah.
I can give you an example too. There was a group of people that came out at the same time trying to discredit it psychologically with the past regression stuff, and they all got together and said, "Oh, the past regression stuff's a bunch of BS," and blah blah blah. And they wrote this book, but all of them were involved in some kind of governmental MKUltra. I mean, it's like the fox writing that the chickens don't exist. You know what I'm saying?
Or the fox saying, "I'm not hungry. I'm not
Yeah,
hungry at all. I don't
exactly,
need anything."
exactly. So there's a guy named, I think it's Jim Wilder, who wrote a book. It came out and he just refuted all the past regression stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
saying, no, you guys have an agenda, which
Yes.
we're used to in our space. So anyway, keep going.
Yes. And I remember seeing that documentary. There was a documentary on that, like 3 episodes or 4 episodes, and I remember watching that and talking all about past regression and how that's, "Oh, these things, no, they don't really exist, and people don't have those memories," and so dismissive and discrediting.
In our experience, you can put memories in there by accident. It's possible, but
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
like you said, the sheer number of cases
Yeah.
Yeah.
that are out there refute. Not everybody knows how to do that. Not everybody's doing that. Anyway,
Right, right.
yep,
And it's that great Heiser line, "If one person is right, that busts the paradigm." So if
exactly.
there are 99 that are lying and one that's telling the truth,
Yep,
let's deal with that one.
yep,
Let's talk about the repercussions of that. So that made me feel like this guy's a little sussy, or to lose respect for him. Actually, I had tremendous amount of respect for him
yeah,
and that whole unit. I think what they've done a great work, but they're so dismissive of any spiritual components. It's just not in
yeah.
their mindset.
Pure
And
scientism, pure,
yes,
pure
yes.
enlightenment scientism, yeah, which is good, but it needs more.
It pluses and minuses. It's part
Yeah,
of the picture, it's not the whole
yeah,
picture. And then the other thing was that somebody had told me, or I was listening to a preacher at the time, and he said, one of the great stories of redemption is that David Berkowitz, son of Sam, is now a believer. I'm like, huh? No, no, no. Because the perspective of John Douglas, and I would assume the general perspective that I've gotten, whether or not, people will actually fess up to it or anything, but is that once you've reached that level of serial killer, serial rapist, mass murderer, whatever, once you have sort of crossed that line, there is no hope of redemption for you. You're
yeah,
done. You're too far
yeah,
gone.
yeah.
People like that don't change and don't turn back. So I heard about this, and of course, I began obsessing right away. And I started watching videos of David Berkowitz giving his testimony, and a
Yeah,
very, very skeptical. And watching this and trying to watch facial expressions, and is
what your
this
gut was
man
saying too.
believable?
Yeah,
Yeah, and what my gut is saying, and what are the fruits of that? What are the evidences of that? So
yeah.
that's kind of how I dove into the whole thing. I've probably watched. My husband teases me. He said you've taken in all the true crime. You're going to have to drop down to true misdemeanor because you've covered all the crime.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll start watching stuff now. You're like, oh wait, no, no, I did watch before. I know this case. Okay, no, I go watch something else. I'm bored. I know this one. I know how the story ends here. So I guess I'm kind of always seeking a new new story, new things to learn. But so that's where I come from. That's my space. I know a lot of it. We could talk for hours about different serial killers and stories and
Yeah.
things like that. But that's kind of where I come from and what I began investigating. I thought this is absolutely fascinating. And then I heard an interview with Michael Caparelli, who's the author of Monster Mirror. And like you were
Yeah.
saying in the beginning, he spent over 100 hours. He's a PhD.
He's a cop too, right? Is he is he Leo? Is he a law enforcement?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't know. I
I
haven't
don't
read
think
this
he's
book
law
yet, but I'm
enforcement.
going to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a pastor for a while.
Okay.
He's done, yeah, and he's got his PhD, but I don't remember exactly what it's in. Sorry,
Yeah.
but he contacted David Berkowitz, and he spent over 100 hours face to face interviews, recording a year's worth of letters, and they still correspond. Interviewing him and trying to understand what brought him here, and I think he was genuinely surprised at a lot of the things that he found, and that's why Monster Mirror, and we'll get to this, but kind of like the how serial killers being like a breed, we think they're a breed apart from us. They're
Right.
different from us. They're just twisted at the very beginning, and they've gone a totally wrong direction, and they're not like us at all. Because we're normal and they're not, right? But what he does in this book is kind of unpack how the enemy uses the same rule book to trip us all up.
That's
And you may
interesting.
not be able to relate to everything that he went through. You will be able to relate to some aspects of it. Say, I had a similar experience. I had this.
That's profound because I'm just sitting here thinking I do. When I hear about it, oh, they're a sociopath. Oh,
Mhm.
they're a psychopath. There's no redemption. They're too far gone. I mean, that happens even subconsciously, and I need to relearn that nothing can get past the blood of Jesus.
Mm, mhm,
Which I think is
mhm,
important for us to remember. And but yeah, you're right. I do. I think about. I tell Sandy that, and then even dealing with narcissistic people, I'm like, yeah,
mhm.
they won't change. They're going to be a narcissist for the rest of their life. And then I realized, there's a huge factor involved here, and his name is God, and we have to really keep that in mind. And I don't sometimes. So
Right. Right. Just remember the thing that this is also a person that Jesus died for
Yes.
exactly,
because of his love. He
yeah.
died for Ted Bundy. He died for Ed Kemper. He died for those David
Henry Lee
Berkowitz.
Lucas, whew, yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, and some people you just yeah. And Charles Manson. He died for Charles Manson too,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? All those people. And we forget that. We put him into categories that this guy is Jim Jones. He's the head. He was the head of that terrible
Mhm.
massacre, Jim Jones in Jonestown. He
People's
was in charge of that,
People's
but
Temple. Yeah.
People's
the
Temple,
People's
yeah,
Temple, that's right,
yeah,
right. But Jesus died for him,
yeah.
and we can't put him in this box and say, "No, no, 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 they're different," because 'cause they're not. They're
Well,
still
and we
souls
dive
people
into
died for.
the fringe space, Jen,
Mhm,
where at least my paradigms have really been busted by guys that like Matt Arnold and other people with Matt McGuire and all this about like what happens in the afterlife. And I'm not
mm,
saying I'm buying all they're selling, but I am rethinking and relooking at what it means heaven when you die and all that stuff. And I need to check out. I haven't checked out Blurry's new episode with John Burke. I really want to check that out. I heard it
mm,
was really really good,
mhm,
but it deals a lot with that, like what happens when you die and stuff. And so with all that coming into all this, it makes people to me more people. And then and I know we're going to get into this later, but then you throw in the whole that some of this might be organized, which Lindsay and I kind of believe. And I
mhm,
know Caparelli doesn't go into it because Berkowitz doesn't go into it. But when it's organized and all together, it's a different creature than just one lone man.
mhm,
So anyway, we can
mhm.
get there later. But anyway, keep going.
So the book touches on it a little bit. And
Yeah.
I know, Lindsay, that you've read that, and I watched the documentary based on Maury's. books
Yeah.
and his findings and everything, very compelling.
Very compelling.
Yeah, but we can touch on that a little bit because they
Yeah.
do touch on a little bit in the book. But I don't think
Really?
that
Okay.
was Caparelli's focus. He
Yeah.
wanted to understand David.
Right.
So, yeah.
It was redemptive. I mean, Caparelli's
Mhm,
focus is
mhm.
redemptive from what I understand, and that's what I want this show to get into. We can talk about other things and his reasons for, maybe skirting around certain things and why, but overall, there has been a spiritual transformation of David Berkowitz,
Yeah,
and yeah, and so that's pretty incredible, very
man.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I always doubted Dahmer's. It could be real.
yeah.
I don't like to judge hearts, but I always doubted Dahmer's because it seemed like at the end that he baited those guys to kill him. The story. It seemed like he would sit
Yeah.
down at the table and tell him what he did to people, and that all that's going to do is make prisoners angry, mad, want to kill you. You
Right.
know.
Right, right. And,
So
that's one of the things he brings out in the book too, is that if you look at a diamond, right? The diamond or any gem, you'll know it is true by the flaws. So they chart like, oh, it has a little occlusion here, it has a tiny thing there, and that's how you know it's the true diamond. If it's just pure and it has no faults and no problems with it, then it's a cubic zirconia.
that's
And this is a
fascinating.
manufactured thing.
Wow, that's a
So
good point.
that's one of the
Wow.
things we need to keep in mind, and I,
Yeah.
too, keep in mind I've been a Christian for a long time, but I did a lot of stupid things as a Christian, and, we can't expect, like, somebody's saved and, like, all of a sudden, "Oh, they're gonna do all the right things."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's a process of redemption, so judging somebody based on something like that, I mean, it would not surprise me at all if Dahmer had a death wish at some point.
Yeah.
Just the struggle and the internal battle would be like,
Yeah.
"Just take me out.
Well,
Just I
that
gotta
that
go."
that runs into the whole thing, and I'm not going down this rabbit hole, but that runs into the whole thing about suicide and Christians
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
the fate of that and stuff. I've been on the precipice of that myself, and I
Mhm.
know I was a Christian. I've had interactions with God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus, but I was on the precipice of it, and I was ready to do it. And actually, two things that kept me from doing it was one, I was afraid of going to hell, and two, my family. And that's what did it. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, Jennifer, and I like that you're bringing this up, is that there's a whole lot of gray. Now God
Mm,
sees black and white, but we don't always see black and white without
mhm,
his help.
mhm.
And we want to neatly compartmentalize. We talked about this yesterday, how Western society, we want to compartmentalize everything, and it's just not that easy.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
it's just not that easy. Anyway.
right. We're more comfortable with the compartments, right? But
Oh yeah.
this is like you've made a puzzle and you just have you have a tiny little square and you think it's 100 pieces by 100 pieces or whatever. And actually there it's a thousand pieces by a thousand pieces, and the parts that you thought fit in this space, they don't fit there, they fit over here, and there's other parts that go in that space, and it's kind of like you have to having to start the whole puzzle all over again. You know what the reality is of, we know the gospel truth, we know Jesus, we know those things, but other ideas that have been put in the puzzle, and what do we do with this piece and where does that go? I think that's all part of it, and that's all part of working out your salvation over a lifetime, the
Yeah.
process of redemption, not the
Yeah.
instantaneous, "Ta-da! I'm all new now." I
Well, I
mean,
had that I
part
had
of you
that
is,
problem
but
when I
part of you
did
isn't.
jail ministry in
Mm,
the town I used to live in. Is we would go in and these guys would get saved, born again, and they had their honeymoon, and they're like, "Wow, man, evangelizing everybody on the cell block, they're da da da," and then they started to realize, "Oh, I still have the flesh here," and old habits would creep in, and the battle was just starting and just beginning, and a lot of them would fall away because they thought it didn't work, or my baptism didn't take, or or whatever.
right, right. It didn't take, "Let's try this again."
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And you're right. It's
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
long game. I've heard that 3 times in the past 2 days. It's
Mm.
a long game. Both God and Satan are playing a long game, and I think it's yeah, we have to keep that in mind. Look, I'll be transparent. If you catch me on some days, that people out there would like, is that dude a Christian? I mean, I'm just being
Yeah,
honest.
right, right, right.
So
Well, and it goes back to that whole, and I know you know this, the whole thing about righteousness. right? If
Yes.
I that we wouldn't say I'm righteous because of the things I do, but then we feel unrighteous because of the things we do. But actually, because we're a believer, righteousness is stamped on us,
Yes.
not by what we've done, but what Jesus did.
Yeah.
And we still are looking, it's so hard for me, especially to get out of that the righteousness is based on what you do. And so, like, you're treating everybody like, oh, you have to do the righteous thing. No, that's supposed to be an outgrowth of really believing that you are stamped with
Mhm.
righteousness. That's a hard one for me, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's a hard one for a lot of people.
Well, we I talked about yesterday in a podcast I did with this guy about righteousness being less about morality and more about
Mm,
like a chosenness and a purity of our bloodline and a quality. It's not behaviorism. It can't be that. Behavior matters and it issues forth from it.
mhm.
But righteousness is it's more of an identity than it is an action.
Yeah, an
And I think
identity.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's good. Okay, so let me just give you a little, if you're new
Go for it.
to Berkowitz, I'll just give
Yeah.
you like a quick touchstone. So David Berkowitz is known as the son of Sam. He had a killing spree in New York City over a period of about 13 months back in 76 and 77. And he's famous for it. You might hear that the neighbor's dog told him to kill.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that he said when he was initially apprehended. Yeah, so we'll go a little bit into his history. So that's kind of the big arc. And I mean, you can throw a cat at Netflix and find tons of documentary. You can find lots of stuff that will detail the series of his crimes. So that's kind of not
Yeah.
what we're talking about now. But all
Yeah.
right, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of history. And this is actually going to start where I can relate to him, and it's going to relate back to some of the stuff that you guys have already, some podcasts you've already done. Okay, so he was born in 53. He was adopted about 5 days later, and he struggled over his life to accept that love and affection from his parents. And he said later that his parents were wonderful people, and he didn't understand why he couldn't accept it. But the more they tried to love him, the more angry he would become, the more he would push that away. It's what I call the push me pull you phenomenon, right? I want you to love me and care about me, but on the other hand, I am terrified that if you love me, one, I don't deserve it, and two, you're going to find something that you're going to hate about me and you're going to push me away.
That sounds
So
like
I'm going to
borderline
push.
personality disorder. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm pulling you in and I'm pushing you back at
Yep.
the same time. And so he suffered through a lot of that. What Caparelli talks about in the book is that a lot of times with adopted children, there is an attachment disorder where in those first early days, you were trying to bond with somebody, you're trying to bond with your mom, and that's the only thing you know in the whole wide world, and then somebody hands you off. And then it's a nurse, and then it's a social worker, and then it's this person, and then it's that person. Who do you connect to if you start to love somebody and care about somebody? They're just going to take it away.
Yeah.
And I cannot even tell you how much I can relate to that. I was adopted way back in early days of adoption,
I didn't know.
and
Did I know that? Did you tell? I
I
think you
don't
told me that.
know. I don't know. But it was after a month. What they would do in the state I am in, they would put the baby up for adoption, right? Say that, and I guess paperwork and stuff like that. And the baby would stay with a social worker or volunteer foster person for a month's time, and then they would hand the baby over. And I realize, especially after reading this, that I can so relate to that. I'm not upset at my adoptive parents or didn't like them or something like that, but it was a sense of, I don't fit here.
Mm.
Something is off, and I can't fully, it's the inability to relax and be loved. I couldn't do it. I
So
still struggle with that.
you still yeah, like a fight or flight constantly, right? Is that what it's like fight or flight mode,
It's
or
it,
is it?
it's more of a you. Okay, so you imagine, like, if you're sitting in a chair right now, right, and you stand up and you're not touching the chair, but you almost are. And after a while, kind of doing a squat over the chair, but not touching the chair, you know, your legs get all weak and achy and stuff like that. But you can't sit down because you can't trust the chair. You think that chair is going to fall out. So you always have to be on guard. You have to be supporting yourself, and you can't relax and have a seat.
Makes
You can't
sense.
do it.
Yeah.
because you
There was
can't trust
always
that.
some hesitancy kind of there, is what you
Yes,
were saying.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not so much fight or flight, but just I can't trust this chair to sit in. And I can't tell you how growing up I really I had cousins. So on my dad's side of the family, people were very musical or athletic. And I'm not musical and I'm not athletic. And in my mother's side of the family, this is my adopted parents here. My mother's side of the family were very intellectual and kind of the globetrotter kind of person. Very very like trivia in the car and stuff like that, and I didn't fit in either of those. So I didn't fit in that, and I couldn't relax, and I didn't fit in my own home because my brother was very athletic and he looked down on me because I wasn't. And so like all these things, I just didn't fit. I just didn't have a place. And that was the same thing with Berkowitz. He felt
Yeah.
this sense he couldn't relax, he couldn't love them, and he felt so unworthy of that love that he couldn't accept it. And all those things, man, they just ring true in my whole life.
Well,
In
and
my
he
whole life.
also was adopted into a different religion. I mean, if I recall, he was adopted. Berkowitz, they were Jewish, right? And so
Yes.
he was adopted from like a Gentile or into Jewish, and then even later on, doesn't he experiment with Christianity for a minute? I mean,
Yeah.
and I think I recall something in his story about how he would go to church and he
Yeah.
wasn't accepted there.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think his mother, his birth mother was Jewish. She
Okay,
had the name Falco due to a marriage that ended. She just
yeah,
kept the last name.
yeah,
But I think he wasn't into a different religion. I think it was the
okay,
same religion, but I
all
know
right,
he experimented with a lot of stuff. A
yeah.
lot of
He
stuff,
was just like
trying
a
to find
straight up
peace.
fundamentalist street preacher at one point, I think, for a little while when he was down, I want to
Yeah,
say maybe in Florida.
yeah,
Wow, wow.
yeah,
I don't yeah, I didn't pick
yeah,
up on that.
yeah. That
Yeah,
was when he was older. I
interesting.
think before he got involved in the occult stuff. Yeah,
Right, in the
and
process
he
search, yeah.
didn't. And you know that's the theme I'm hearing you say. He wasn't attached to
Mhm.
it, and the only group that he was able to attach to was the occultic stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what the process church did for him.
yeah,
So, more aspects of his childhood is he had this anger, he couldn't understand why he was angry because he knew they were good parents, but there was this anger because of all these feelings that he didn't know what to do with, and as a young kid, he couldn't process that. So,
yeah.
at about 5 or 6, and he says this was kind of really a turning point for him, it was common when kids were adopted, the adopted parents would say, "Your mother died in childbirth, so she wasn't able to raise you." And so they told that to David when he was about 5 or 6, and they're kind of trying to say, "It's not your fault, it's not." They're the lie was there to make it seem like your mother didn't reject
Reject
you,
you. Yeah,
she died. And that you can see where there's the good motive for that, but
that
for
lie.
David,
Yeah.
yeah, with
Yeah.
that lie, right. But for David, he felt for a long, long time, he
Hmm.
struggled with this. He thought he had killed his mother,
Mm.
and he thought he was
Mm.
responsible. Did he kick her when he was being born? Did he do something to kill her? So he, as a child, right, you take all this in, you think the world revolves around you and everything's your fault. He took that in and
Mm.
felt this tremendous guilt and shame. And also an anxiety. He always thought that his birth father, right, because his mother was dead, his birth father was going to maybe find him on the streets of New York City and say, "You killed your mother. I hate you," and further reject him and maybe beat him up or something like that. So, layered on the isolation and the anger, he now had terrible guilt for something he didn't even do, and shame for something he didn't do, and a fear that he's going to be punished for that. Now, as a believer, I can relate to all those things
Oh yeah.
as a
Yeah.
believer.
Yep.
Shame for something I did, a terror that I'm going to be punished for this sooner or later, and another reason to be rejected, another reason to be hated because I did this,
Well, and
whatever
the
that thing may be.
hyper vigilance he had is
Yes.
fatiguing.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Hypervigilance is fatiguing. That I mean, that's one of the big things with PTSD people is their
Mhm.
hypervigilance fatigues them. You just get
Yeah.
wore out.
Right, right. And I'm saying this not as a way to say, like, so it was okay he did those things. He shot
Right.
all those people.
Right.
No, no,
Right.
no. Not saying that. I'm
You're
just
just
telling you the
opening up
story,
his
how he got where he
humanity.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, Yeah.
We need to hear this. We need to hear
Yes.
that he's a human being. Yes.
Yes, he is. He is. So he had those things that's all churning in him, and he has no way to deal with it and to cope with it. And of course, it bleeds out in your family life. It bleeds out in school. It bleeds out with friends. All of that is kind of all there and churning. And sometimes he could hold it together. He actually had he doesn't fit the loner stereotype that people try to put on him. He was not a loner. He had groups of people that he would be with and try to connect with them, and maybe sometimes he could do it for a while, but he couldn't hold it together, and things would just bleed out like that. And since hence the starting fires, that was one thing that he did. He set a lot of fires over a lot of years,
Yeah.
and because it was kind of this sense of emotional release and some place to direct that anger that he's feeling, as opposed to against himself. He used to beat himself up. He used to hit his head
Mm.
on purpose to deal with those feelings, to deal with that anger and that guilt
Oh,
and that
and
shame.
we learned recently about ADHD. We had, I won't go into a lot of detail, but someone who took a spec analysis, and this doctor out in Texas, Dr. Daniel Amen, he does these spec tests, and brain injuries show up like as Swiss cheese on the brain,
Uh,
and head injuries are major for causing psychological problems and stuff. I mean, just hitting your head up against the wall, anger.
mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah, he had a lot of things going against him.
He did, he did. The cards are being stacked against him, and you can see it's the same playbook that the enemy uses on us, right?
Yes.
He tries to
Yep.
isolate it. He
Yep.
tells us, like, you get this traumatic thing. Oh, your mother died when you were born. It's your fault. You must have killed her.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't say like you must have killed her. Say, I must have killed her, and you think that voice is your own. And that one little lie, it's all about trajectory that the enemy tries to use. It's that one little lie. So we could go in a straight line, and if he taps us in one direction or the other, and we start to, based on a lie, we go that other direction,
But it
not the
goes
direction, Lord, there it is, right? You end up thousands of miles from where you were supposed to be if
exactly.
you turn just slightly. And
Yep.
that's what the enemy does. It's the same rule book he uses on all of us, but so many things were stacked against David during this time. All right. So then we get up to the process church. So the process church of the Church of the Final Judgment. And Lindsay, I know you've dug a lot into that. But what drew him into that is because David was experimenting a lot, like we were talking about. He was experimenting with Satanism and stuff like that. And he kind of got lured in by a friend. And then he goes and he shows up at this thing, and you get the classic cult thing of love bombing.
Yep.
Oh, we just love you, right? And make you feel all the good feels. And it eased his isolation because now he finally felt like there was someplace that he belonged. It gave him something to do with his anger because
Mhm.
they would do sacrifices, they would do ceremonies, and it was like you're allowed to express your anger here.
Well,
So,
where let me ask you a question. I'm interrupt you
mhm,
real quick. Did in this book, did he go into drew him into the process? Was it his neighbors, John
yeah.
Carr and Robert Carr?
He doesn't go into so much
Okay.
of that. He does
Okay.
talk about meeting a friend, and the friend said, like, I think the story goes he was at a party, and a friend at the party said, "Oh, hey, you gotta meet this guy. This guy knows a lot of stuff about Satanism," which he was getting into, and kinda looped in like that. I'm not sure if it was the
Yeah, it was
cars or the neighbors. I'm
probably the
not sure about that one.
yeah, it probably was John. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
cool.
So then it also gave him he didn't have to feel ashamed of these feelings and bad anymore. It was like a way to ease all the shame. It was, in a sense, the puzzle pieces that he was missing, even though they were evil puzzle pieces.
Mhm.
They were evil solutions, which
Mhm.
again, that's what the enemy tries to do with us, right? We get stuck. I do this. We get stuck in it, and then I cast about for every other possible answer. I'm scrolling on Facebook. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, and trying to find the answers for this. When what I should be doing, what we should be doing, first is going to the Heavenly Father,
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
going to the Lord, and saying, "How do I help? I have this problem. How do I solve this problem? Give me answers for this problem. Show
Yeah.
me how to solve this problem. Bring people into my life who can help me solve this." And David thought
And
these people were an
when
answer.
you have healthy attachments, which is what we that's basically what salvation is a healthy attachment to the Father.
Mhm.
But then you
Mhm.
have these things called trauma bonds, which,
Mhm.
you bond based out of your trauma, and that's probably what the process church drew out of him. He bonded
Mm.
with them because they have like traumas. That
Right.
makes sense. So
Yes, yes. Oh, that's good, that's good. I hadn't thought about that one.
yeah.
So, the Process Church, and I don't know, Lindsay, if you guys have talked about this before, but they also have ties to Charles Manson, and I
Hmm.
think, if I'm not mistaken, ties to Scientology? Is that
Yes.
Yeah,
something you
it's a
thought?
That
Scientology spinoff,
it's an
arguably. I
offshoot.
mean, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, okay. That's what I thought, that's what
And
I thought.
I'll kind of disclose this. We're learning that they might have ties to the Hillside Stranglers and possibly the Zodiac. So yeah,
Get
yeah,
out. Okay, I wanna
yeah,
know more about
yeah, yeah.
that.
That's what
Oh,
I'm saying.
man.
This whole lone killer thing is
Right.
quickly as things are being red pilled. Is the whole
Mhm.
lone killer thing is starting to seem like an MKUltra thing, sort of.
Right,
I
right.
think the guy that wrote the Laurel Canyon book, I can't think of his name,
Mhm.
David.
Dave McGowan.
Dave McGowan has a book called Program to Kill that deals a lot with what we're
Mm.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
So we won't go down that rabbit hole
right.
right now, but we will.
We will, we
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
Jen, what was Caparelli's kind of approach? Did he have kind of a? Did he just? I'm gonna go sit down and talk with him. Did he have something in mind how he was going to approach this in the book,
I
or?
I think the idea for his approach was to psychologically understand Berkowitz and
Hmm.
to talk to him to understand it. And that was the modus for the interview. And
Yeah.
as the interviews progressed, they kind of morphed into a deeper understanding of how David is not different from the rest of us. How
Well,
we
they got
have
close,
all
right?
that
They became
aspect of it.
friends.
Very close, very
Yeah,
close. Yeah, friends, I would say if the friends to this day, friends to
yeah,
this day. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we know one of the aspects of Charles Manson and all that stuff is they wanted to create chaos, which is exactly what Berkowitz did in these killings. It created chaos, a feeling of instability, fear, all of those things. All of those things. All right. So the son of Sam, I thought this was interesting. He called himself the son of Sam because Sam stood for Samhain, and that's a Celtic November 1st celebration that they would have. And the Celts believed that the veil between us and the spiritual world was the thinnest at that point, and so they
Yeah.
would offer sacrifices and do those things to be able to reach across the veil. Sometimes sacrifices, even David says, sometimes sacrifices of virgins and other sacrifices and things like that to try to reach across the veil, which is what they wanted. And later, sacrifices to the fairies or the Siddhas. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But Samhain was later personified as a shapeshifter or a puka. You guys know what a puka is?
No, educate us.
A puka would be like the appearance of a large animal, spirit animal, but it might be physical. You might be able to see it
So
physical.
it's similar to a cryptid. It is a cryptid. It would be considered a cryptid.
Possibly, but I would
Yeah,
put a different spin on it. Do you remember Jimmy Stewart's movie Harvey?
yeah. The rabbit.
The
Yeah.
rabbit was a puka.
Okay. Okay.
And I can't, I mean, when I read Puka, I thought, "Oh, Jimmy Stewart, Harvey, Laurel Canyon."
Yeah. Well. Yeah. And Jimmy Stewart
Yeah,
was big in the LSD. He was big in experimenting and all that kind of stuff. He's like
right,
Mr. America. I mean, everybody thinks
right.
of Jimmy Stewart, and he was
Well,
deep into all that stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, right, and It's a Wonderful Life, and
Yep. Yep.
I
There go,
struggle with this
Clarence.
one. So, yeah, ties to Laurel Canyon, and Samhain was later meshed with the October 1st, All Hallows Eve, and
Yeah.
that's what has us brought to us Halloween today as we know it.
Hmm.
So it wasn't Son of Sam like Sam Berkowitz or something. It was the son of Sam Hain. And now he says one of the books that he's put out is Son of Sam and now a Son of Hope.
Hmm.
I mean,
That's great.
for somebody to take on that moniker, I mean, that just gives me chills.
Yeah.
That a
Yeah.
Son of Hope. A Son of Hope. I love that. I love that so much. So that's kind of when he was 23 when the murder started. And he'd actually reconnected at this point in time, this time frame. He had reconnected. He found his birth mother and half sister and nieces, and he's finding these people, but he can't. Again, he can't connect. He
Yeah.
has like talked to them and is meeting with them and getting together for lunch and whatnot, but he can't let go. He can't take a seat and relax into that connection. He still
Well, he's
can't do it.
believed a lie. I mean, he was told a lie his whole
Yes.
life
Right.
that right there. I mean, I remember growing up, it offended the heck out of me when I found out Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all that stuff wasn't real, and I was so devastated and it made me, and I'm just one of these weird intellectual goofballs, but it made me begin to say, well, if Santa Claus is
Yeah.
not real, then maybe Jesus is not real, maybe God is not real.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Most
Mhm.
kids don't do that, but I'm just a little off in the my cornbread didn't cook in the middle. So
It's interesting. I like that analogy. It's interesting that we think about like we want to take kids on this adventure. Santa Claus, the Tooth
yeah,
Fairy, that
it's
kind of thing. We want
innocent.
to take
Yeah.
kids on, right. I was reading the Children's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I thought, oh, this is a classic, wonderful, wonderful. And then I get to like the third poem in this book, and it's all about eating the fairy bread in the night when you dream. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what is happening here?
Yeah.
No, no, no." And it just opened my eyes to all these things that we've given to kids. We think, "Oh, it's just imagination." No. You're
Well,
setting up a framework for other
well,
things, and we
that
don't want
ties
that.
into like Poe and all these guys using drugs. There's a rabbit hole I've been kind of going down as
Mm,
the modern day MKUltra is turning out to be psychedelics and drugs. That's how they're beginning to do a lot, which we'll get into that later on in our
oh,
episodes down the
man.
road. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, Robert Louis Stevenson was, I think he used some kind of opioid or some kind of, I know Poe did, and a lot of authors that was their muse. They would trip out, and they got great imaginary kind of stuff, but where did it come from?
Mhm.
Right.
They were in that world illegally, so where was it coming from?
I didn't know that about Poe. I did know he married his 13-year-old first cousin.
Yeah, which is kind of sus too. Anyway,
It is, it is. Okay, so let's get so, all right, so we've got that little bit of background on David. Let's get to the conversion story. What
okay,
happened to him?
yeah,
So he is in prison and he has, oh gosh, I think a 345 years sentence. He has
yeah,
this huge sentence. He's never getting out,
yeah. Well, they just
unless on
denied him
parole.
parole last year again.
Yeah.
He's done it
Well,
12
and
times, I think.
yeah, and
I think.
I'll go well, okay, I can
Okay.
touch on that right now. That's one of the, what I say is a fruit of his salvation, but let's get
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so what happened was he was at a particular prison, I don't remember which prison it was at the time, but one of the guys just kept coming up to him at out in the yard and saying, basically, "Hey, Jesus loves you." He said, "Yeah, well, whatever." He's
Huh.
not taking it in. And the
Yeah.
guy said, "Yeah, and God sent me here to tell you that. That's why I'm here. I'm here to tell you about Jesus." And so they just because he would talk to him every time going out in the yard, they struck up a friendship. And so this guy is sharing all these different things with him about being a Christian and about how much Jesus loves him and gave him a Bible. And he said one night he was sitting in his little isolated cell and everything, and he read Psalm 34, verse 6. And it said, "This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles." And what David says is that everything hit me all at once. The guilt of what I'd done, the shame of who I'd become. And he said he fell on his knees in that cold cell and sobbed with repentance for a
What year
good
was
long
this?
time.
What year was this about?
Oh, that I don't know.
In the,
I'm
in the
gonna say I'm gonna say early 90s or late
okay.
80s.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We can find that out,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you where we can find that out too.
Yeah.
But and he said he went to sleep. He woke up and felt 100 pounds lighter. Right? It's that
Wow.
honeymoon
Yeah.
phase.
Yep.
My life is. He knew his life has
He was
changed. His
clean.
life had
Yep.
totally changed. Yeah,
Yep.
totally clean. And that to me, it didn't have the fanfare. It didn't have the trumpets. It wasn't well at the meeting that week, whatever chapel service might have been at the prison, that he went forward and da da da, look at me, I'm getting saved. It wasn't that. It was weeping in a cold cell alone.
Yeah.
And knowing that other people could hear you, that vulnerability in prison is not not the best modus operandi. People would get you in trouble. In fact, and Lindsay, you can relate to this when the other individuals were being killed from the Process Church, he was attacked by a knife. Somebody tried to kill him. They cut his neck,
Yeah, I remember
and they
hearing
were
about
like
that.
just
Yeah.
inches. I mean, so close to his carotid artery that the medical staff was saying that you could have died. You could have died right there. And he kind of connected the dots that God saved me from that.
Yeah.
He saved me from being killed. I could have been. They were after me too. I could have been
Yeah.
killed.
Yeah.
So, all right, this conversion, like I said, no fanfare, just alone and quiet with the Lord and sobbing. I can so relate to that. So relate to
Yeah.
that.
And
So,
peace.
okay.
And peace.
And
I mean,
peace.
and that's, yeah. I mean, he's
Yeah.
probably never felt peace in his life.
Say, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Probably never felt it until that moment.
Yeah.
What a change. How much would that change, right? For what did Jesus say? For he who is forgiven much loves much.
Much. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how we are like David. We talked a little bit about this. One being the isolation. He felt alone even with friends. And this is something the enemy does with us, right? He isolates us, cuts us off from the herd in one way or another, cuts us off from the body, cuts us off from who we are should be connected to. And that anger, because of things that are beyond his control, things he couldn't explain, lies he believed, he very often succumbed to anger and dwelled in anger, not able to control it. And I know people that anger is a big thing. And I've had that too. Times of like, I don't know what's going on. I'm so angry right now. And just explosive anger. The shame that he believed he'd killed his mother, that not just he made a mistake, but that he was a mistake. Not that he did something bad, but that he was something bad.
His identity. Yeah. Wow.
His identity, right. And that became part of the killer that you
persona.
saw on the
Yep.
streets.
Yep.
That was all connected to that. But we've all felt that. I've struggled with that for so
too.
much
Yeah,
of my
absolutely.
life, that I didn't just make a mistake, I am a mistake. And I wouldn't believe it if somebody said, no, you're not a mistake. No, I am. I made these mistakes and therefore I am a mistake, right? And that's a lie, again, that the enemy tells us.
Well, that's the battle that's been since Genesis and in our culture now, Jen.
Yeah.
All these issues that we have in certain negative aspects of our culture go back to the first 3 chapters
Mhm.
in Genesis. It deals with our identity, that we are beloved sons and daughters, you know?
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
don't have that, I mean, you're lost,
Right.
literally.
Right.
I was
No
lost for
matter
years. Yeah,
how well behaved you are on the outside.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing was abandonment, because he believed like his birth father might find him on the street and push him away again. And he couldn't accept that. There's that core base level abandonment. It's like you're standing on a teeter-totter. You can't ever quite settle out. You can't, because the foundation underneath it is somebody's going to push you away at any moment. Any moment. So living with that sense of abandonment, that's something that I've lived with for a long, long time. And it's very hard, sometimes really hard, for me to sit down and accept where I am, that I'm first loved by God and that I'm loved by my family. It's very hard for me to do that.
And other people too.
And other people too. All right, so we talked a little bit about the effect the Process Church on had him. For one, it made him feel less isolated. It gave him, like I said before, it gave him a way to express his anger, a way to deal with that shame, right? He could push that away and he wouldn't feel abandonment. But another thing the cult caused, and I really want to touch on this because this is often something that cults do, is what he calls in the book de-individuation, the loss of his personality. And if you look at cults, I mean, cults kind of in general, let's take, just for example, Heaven's Gate. Let's take the individuals involved in Heaven's Gate
That's a good
cult.
one. Yeah.
They lost their individual personalities. And because the enemy comes so hard after that individual personalities, that tells me that's something that's very valuable to the Lord. And
Yeah.
in my own life, I've really been trying to dig into that. Who am I as an individual? What unique perspectives, thoughts, feelings, desires, what uniquely did God equip me with? Kind of what was my starter pack of personality?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did
I,
God put there?
Jen, I read a book years ago by E.
Mhm.
Stanley Jones called Victory Through Surrender. And an important part of that for
Ooh.
him, because he was a Methodist missionary in India for a long time. this very Eastern notion of losing yourself in the divine rather than giving yourself up. What the Bible teaches is we release ourselves, but we get ourselves back improved, our identity.
Yeah,
The
resurrection.
parts of the parts of us that are unique. And I thought of that when you talked about that. How that's more biblical to we don't lose ourselves in Christ.
Right.
We do surrender ourselves, and He transforms us and makes us as individuals what we were always meant to be.
Well, and you have two separate ditches in our culture today relating to what Lindsay's saying. You have the one ditch that's the communal, where you're part of the community, and then you have the other ditch where you're the sole. I am a rock. I am an
Yeah.
island. The sole individualism here. I had to bring it back to music. Y'all know that. So if we're going to be thoroughgoing Trinitarian Christians, we have to have both. We have to have
Yeah.
a community that we all are a part of, but we also have to have the individualization, like you're talking about. We are persons, just like God, and they're both important. And the enemy hates the Trinity, and he hates the persons, and that's what he wants to get after. He wants to take away our personhood.
Yeah, I can definitely err on the individual side and be very much the loner myself. So yeah,
Our culture's geared towards that.
Yeah,
totally. Well, and all the identity confusion that you have today. I mean, I don't know what I am. Am I nothing? Am I gender blurry? Am I, what am I?
Right.
And
Who am I?
and that comes back to what the cults do is they, when you said that, I had the image, and it's like etched on my brain, of the three girls, and Lindsay knows all their names, but the one that wrote the autobiography, and they're walking down the corridor, and they're like, like they're flower children when they arrested them, and they're all in their blue dresses, and they all look alike. They're all
with
uniform.
Manson?
Yeah, Manson's girls.
Manson's girls.
Okay,
The family.
Susan Atkins.
Atkins,
Yes.
but it's the other two too. But it's like, where does one stop and the other start? It was like there was no individualization there. So that's a picture.
And I think there's a thing that kind of pushes back against that, or a scripture like that, where we're supposed to die to self. We're supposed to die to ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to die to our sinful desires. We're not supposed to die to all the things that God gave us. It's like a massive tool chest, right? And God knew your life, and He put in, all right, you're going to need a hammer, you're going to need a screwdriver, you're going to need a paintbrush, and you're going to need a calligraphy pen, and you're going to need all these different colors, and you're going to need that, and you're going to need the other thing. And we just we ignore those tools. We say, no, I'm supposed to die to myself. And we push all those things away that God put in there for a purpose.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that scripture, right? Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
Because when you are delighted in the Lord, He puts those desires in there. And we can't squash them down and pretend they're not there. But then on the other hand, we can't have them run our life. We can't ignore the Lord and go through with whatever our desires are.
Yeah.
So it's that balance. But
Paradox.
what the cult did, definitely a paradox.
Well, and to dying to self, at least in my theology over the years, it's been shaped, relates more to, I need to die to the selfishness to take care of myself before I take care of others. And so therefore, most sins we commit are obviously against others. I mean, there are some against God and against ourselves, but most are against other, relationships. And so we need to die to that. And we're only really happy when we make other people happy. When our love is self-giving, we have died to self. And the cool thing about that is that instead of us having to take care of ourselves, that frees up the Father to take care of us. And that is a revelation the body of Christ needs to know now, of the Father wants to take care of you, but He's not going to take care of you until you die and start taking care of others. It's this whole paradox of sowing and reaping, and it's crucial. It's crucial to the whole way it works. And instead, we think, oh, He didn't want me to be me. He wants me to give up hobbies. He wants me to do all this. And He's like, no. I want you to die to yourself of wanting your way over someone else's way. And it's a totally different way of looking at it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
You still keep your personhood. You still keep your who He made you to be, but you're giving up your desires for the desires for other people and for Him. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. So those were the big things that the Protestant church did is they took away his individuality. But he still struggled with all these feelings, anger, guilt, shame, fear, abandonment, all of those, and that's what percolated up into be this killer. But again, the base of it is not different from what so many of us have experienced. It's the same base.
So, well,
Oh,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question for you, real quick.
Mhm.
What before you leave this? Why do you think the media never really followed up with this whole deeper spiritual or cult angle of the Son of Sam case? What do you think they're? I mean, all you can do is speculate. What's your speculation of why you
Right.
think they didn't? I mean, they just dropped it.
To
You
follow
know?
up at that rate. I think one, John Douglas says that that's not possible.
Mm,
The authorities that they rely on and that they quote, whatever, say no, that doesn't happen. This is
okay,
this is and
that's
but then
huge.
also the enemy wants you to dismiss this. That's just a jailhouse conversion. That's all. They're just trying to get out. They're not. It's not real. It's not genuine. So that's spiritual dismissiveness. And
Hmm.
then the other thing is, I when um, reporters, news articles, or whatever come out and talk about the conversion, they get pushed back. Like, oh, you're just dismissing the crimes. Now you're
Mm,
saying it's not important at all. What's
interesting.
wrong with you? Don't you know what he did to people? So they get it's I think it's all of those together.
So our culture has a lack of respect for
Yeah.
forgiveness, basically.
Oh gosh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yes. We
yeah.
we don't want to forgiveness is hard, right? But if you believe in this conversion, then it takes you down the road. You have to believe there is a God that loves us and a God that wants us to convert to him and on and on and on. And I don't think that is necessarily in a lot of reporters' worldview or an agenda they want to push
Well,
or
and
publicize
also
in any way.
if you push the whole evil,
Mhm.
that opens up the fact, well, if there's evil, that means there must be good. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
people believe in the devil unless you're like Anton LaVey, who really wasn't a Satanist. He was just a libertine. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, keep going.
Mhm. Yeah, those would be my reasons, my
Yeah.
speculations for
Yeah.
those.
Yep.
All right. So, how do we know that this is a genuine conversion? This plays
Yeah.
right on what you were asking. How do we
Yeah.
know that? One, you brought up parole. He doesn't want to be released. Not because, I mean, he has been in prison for the majority of his adult life. He's in his
Yeah.
70s now, and
Yeah.
he's been in there since mid 20s. So, it's a lifestyle he knows. So it's adjustment to a different life. But what he says is that I don't want to go to parole hearings. I don't go, but I know I'm required now. So I do go, but I don't want to be released because I committed these crimes. And the families that I hurt deserve that justice. They
Interesting.
deserve that. I don't deserve to be free from this prison because this is where I belong. This is what I did. Now, to me, a jailhouse conversion, the cliche of a jailhouse conversion would be like, I'm saved. I'm a good person. I just want to get out. He doesn't want to get out. That
Yeah.
speaks volumes to me. He's
Yeah.
not trying to escape. He's taking responsibility for what he did
Yeah.
and doing the best he can with where he's at. That to me is the number one thing. But he has Bible studies, prayer meetings, disciples, men in the prison.
Well, and
And
God's
he
using his celebrity. I know it's not celebrity, but God
right.
is using his well knownness, his celebrity, to be
Mhm.
a stepping block to be able to do all these things. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
what prisoner wouldn't want to be in a Bible study with the son of Sam? Yeah,
Right.
seriously,
Yeah.
And anyway,
He
I
he
think that's fascinating.
he also has a vast letter writing ministry.
Well, that's cool.
He'll get letters from people who are suicidal and he'll write back to them and say, "Thank you so much for responding to me. I now no longer feel suicidal. You've given me hope." He'll write to and he'll connect with other serial offenders who have committed crimes, who write to him to reach out to him, and he'll write and respond to that. He writes thousands of letters, not email, writing thousands of letters to give to people. And to me, that's just over and over and over and over, reaching out, ministering, giving you the hope that I've gotten without fear, like any reservation. Like Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Like, I'm not ashamed of this. I'm going to tell you about this. This was the only hope I had. And for somebody to receive a letter like that and say, this is Son of Sam. Son of Sam is telling me these things. What is this God like? I got
Yeah.
to know more about this God.
Yeah.
The other thing that he does, oh yeah, and I like to put it this way: he is uniquely equipped to reach an unreached people group.
The serial killer community.
Serial killers, serial
Now tell us
rapists,
more about that.
mass
Tell us about
murderers.
that ministry he has that he's diving into. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, all of the stuff that he does with the letters and things like that, that's an aspect of it. He also, some friends of his have put together a website. It's called ariseandshine.org. And he has so different writings, different books that are compiled by his writings. He does not have access to the website, and
Right.
he receives no money at all from the books and things like that he sells. So he profits nothing from this. He gets nothing of that. But the Rise and Shine, if you want to know more about David, I mean, front page, I was lost, but now I'm found. I mean, that's the core of being a Christian. That's the life experience, right? That's amazing grace. I was blind, now I see. And right there on the front page, no hiding it, no shameness of the gospel, just straightforward. But he has copious amounts of information that are on there that's been accumulated over the years that you can
Yeah.
see. And so that is again a unique ministry. If somebody looks up David Berkowitz or Son of Sam, odds are that is going to come up somewhere in your search when you're looking for it. It's
That's
called,
cool.
again,
That's
Rise and
awesome.
Shine. The other thing that he has done, he has tried to reconcile with any family members or any people that were victimized by what he did, to reconnect, to apologize, to express, those things. And he was actually good friends with Nisa Moskowitz, who's the mother
Yeah.
of Stacy Moskowitz,
Yep.
who was his last victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they communicated for a long time, and
Yeah.
um
Stacy Moskowitz was one of his, with Maury Terry, one of his biggest proponents that there was more people involved than him. I mean, once she got convinced, she was his big cheerleader for that, and a lot of reconciliation happened there.
yes.
It talks about that in
So
Terry's book. So yeah.
So let me touch on that, because he does go into this at the end of the Monster Mirror book. And he said, this is Caparelli's story, that David talked to him and said, "Like, you got to come down. We got to talk. We got to talk. This is keeping me up at nights. I got to talk to you." And all throughout the book, David said, I'm not going to talk about the crimes. I'm not going to talk about what happened there. I'm going to talk about other stuff. So he would never specify, wouldn't be specific on it. So David calls him in and comes in this meeting like, "I got to talk to you. I have to get this off my chest." And he's like, "What, the killings?" "Yeah, about the killings." And so he asked him point blank, "Did you shoot those people, or was there anybody else involved?" And David said, I shot them. It was me. It was all me." And that he'd wanted to tell Nisa Moskowitz before she died. He wanted to tell her face to face, but they were never able to meet there. And what he says is that the interviews that he gave in the 1990s, he's sorry that he did it. Part of it was, I think, part of it is that people pleasing kind of thing. If
Hmm.
I can please you and do what you want, you'll stay my friend. And then I see that as such another big thing in people's lives. How much do we do because we want to keep that person's friendship? How much of ourselves do we let go or deny because we want to maintain that relationship that we think is beneficial to us?
Right.
Right? We just let go of those things. So again, that to me rings so true. But I do absolutely believe the Process Church tried to kill him. The Process Church
Absolutely.
was involved in some way or another, but whether it's to the actual shootings, maybe they were like an encouragement to create chaos. Maybe they
Hmm.
were aware of what they might be pushing him to.
Yeah.
But as far as them actually be involved or additional shooters, David says no, that's not the
Okay.
case.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, Lindsay and I both, we believe that he's, even though I have no doubt about his experience with the Lord and all that kind of stuff, and
mhm,
I even put myself in his place. If I think his parents have passed now,
yeah.
but even as a born again Christian, and this goes back to, we did a show with Dr. Solberg, and he was talking about the spirit of the commandments and stuff like, yeah, okay, if Nazis knock
Mm,
on the door and they ask if you have any Jews hidden in the basement, you're going to say no, you're going to lie.
mhm,
And that's not, honestly, you can see it in the Bible. It's not really a sin. I mean, the ladies who lied to the Pharaoh's
Right.
authorities about that. Anyway, and so I our speculation, I'll let Lindsay speak for himself. My speculation is that there was probably some more involvement. I don't know if they necessarily committed the shootings. I'll give that,
Mhm.
but I think they were more involved, and I think he was still in fear, and he's still trying to protect people. I mean, that's just
Mm. It could
my
be. It could
shade
be.
tree
Mhm.
speculation and opinion of it as well. Um,
Right. 'Cause he has a half sister, he has nieces
yeah,
that he says he misses dearly. He would love to contact them, but,
yeah.
they're like, "No way."
Wow,
And
I didn't
so
know
he
that.
may be trying to protect them
Well,
and
and
other
this,
family
and
members.
we're realizing this process web is huge, and we're
Yeah.
actually interviewing somebody tomorrow to go deeper into it. It's this web it's bigger than just outliers.
Right.
It's in the government, it's in Hollywood, it's in all these corporate America. You know,
Mhm.
this is a
Mm.
many tentacled monster, which I believe also comes from the ultimate source of like Freemasonry and secret
Mhm.
society type stuff, all that. But in
Mhm. Mhm.
Scientology is, I think, is still involved with even the process church. Lindsay,
Yeah, I don't, I don't. I'm kind of where you're at. I don't want to question his salvation based on
no,
anything
yeah,
or anything like that, or his genuineness. But yeah, I'm still. I think there's good evidence that there were more people involved and
Mm.
more shooters involved, and I just leave it
Mhm.
at that.
yeah, yeah. It'll sort out. It
Yeah,
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, particularly when we started finding out that
and
there
I
was
and I leave room that I can be wrong.
yes, I could be wrong.
Always.
Exactly. And it's starting to shape up that there's more these guys involved too. I recommend, and it's kind of an older book, but Program to Kill by David McGowan dealt with a lot of MKUltra Manhattan Project type situations, and that it's still going full blast. But
Mhm.
it's taken on a different shape than Stranger Things,
Right.
so to speak, or
Right.
Montauk, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which we're gonna really, I really interested in getting to that, but I'm not by any means challenging or questioning Son of Sam's sincerity or his salvation or any of that. I
Mhm.
think it's awesome. I think the
Hmm.
story needs to be heard. I
Mhm.
think people
Mhm.
need to see that there's redemption out there. And I want to ask you this just to kind of wrap this up in a neat bow, Jen. If
Mhm.
there's someone out there right now listening and they feel like they've gone too far, like there's no way back, what
Mhm.
would you say to them through the lens of this David Berkowitz story? What
Oh my
what does
gosh.
his journey reveal about the kind of hope that Jesus actually offers? Is this hard question?
There's no too far. There's no too far. And to think about it, I mean, if Jesus can forgive and bless the life of David Berkowitz and his ministry, what he's able to do now, well, he can do that with anybody. There's no limit. It's like Corey Ten Boom said, right? She said, "There's no pit," and she was in a concentration camp. Her family hid Jews in Holland during World War II, over 700
Yeah.
Jews. And she said, "There's no pit so deep that he is not deeper still." And her sister Betsy said to her, "You'll be free," because they were both in the concentration camp together. Betsy died. They said, "You'll be free, and you will tell people that there's no pit so deep that he is not deeper still, and they will believe us because we have been here." And David has been there in the deep pits, and there is no pit so deep that he is not deeper still. Period.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. His arm is not short, it is not beyond his capabilities, and it is not beyond his love.
Wow.
I would say that.
Well,
Nothing is beyond his love.
and they both have the fruit of it. I mean, Corey Ten Boom
Yes.
for forgiving her at that. I'm not going to get into the whole story, but forgiving that commandant or whatever that was over him, and he didn't
Right.
even know who she was, and then just to me, what impresses me about Berkowitz is he's ministering to other
Right.
serial killers. I mean,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
that 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 just, wow, that blows me away.
And people writing him saying, I'm gonna go and blow my parents away. I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go do that." And he
Yeah,
responds to that. And he can speak to that better with greater authority than I ever could. It's amazing. It's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, what he
that's
can
amazing.
do. Yeah.
Well, look, I want to take a minute. I just want to say that if God can reach David Berkowitz, a man once tangled up in darkness death, the occult, then there's hope for you out there. And Jesus doesn't come in and just clean up nice people, church people. He rescues the worst of us, which I am part of that. Jen is admitted to it, and Lindsy as well. And he rescues the worst of us in the worst places. So if you're feeling lost, you're feeling angry, you're feeling ashamed, or just pointless or hopeless, or wandering, don't wait for a perfect moment.
Mm.
Cry out to him right now. Just think about Berkowitz in his cell among his peers. And if you've ever lived in a prison culture, that what he did took incredible amount, not only humility, but courage to bow in his cell and cry out to him. And that same mercy that reached David in his prison cell can reach you, and it's available for you. So
Amen.
I just wanted to share that Jesus has made a way through his death and his burial and his resurrection for you to be able to be attached to your maker and your Father. So I'm gonna leave that right there. Thank you, Jen, so much. This is
Thank you.
Phenomenal, of course. I expected it to be. So if any of you out there want to reach out to Jen, I'll let her share her deets real quick. You have any deets you want to share?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I lead a book club for women called the Gritty Ladies Book Club, Scratching Beneath the Surface. And this book, Monster Mirror, that may be one that we cover here pretty soon. But so you can just email me, grittyladiesbookclub@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of me. But I'm there. So.
Well, thank you. And like I said, if there's anybody out there that you need Jesus, reach out to this podcast. We'll pray with you. We'll do whatever you need. Well, thank you, Jen. We appreciate you once again on the show, and we love you, and we will have you back.
Thank you both.
Thanks for listening and supporting us. And remember, stay naturally supernatural.